because we ask to consume it on our own lusts. What will be the role of the 12 apostles of Jesus in God's new world order? They will sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel.
For the kingdom of heaven is like a householder who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them to his vineyard. And going out about the 3rd hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he said to them, "You go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you." So they went. Going out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing, and said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all the day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You go into the vineyard too."
All right, we have here a parable that continues the thought from our last session together. A verse we had said little about had ended the discussion, but many that are first shall be last. And it's this thought that Jesus is picking up. There are many different places where he has taught the idea that the rewards in heaven and the values of heaven are quite different than down here. This is taught, of course, in the book of Revelation by a rather interesting note that in heaven they pave the streets with gold. They use it for asphalt, you know. Down here we die for it. We dig up and climb the Yukon for it. We go to the Klondike strikes for it. We go to South Africa for it. We mine for it in Australia. Up in heaven they walk on it. They finally got it on their feet, and we might be better off if we got the stuff under our feet down here too. And in this matter, that the values of the kingdom of God are radically different from those of this earth. Jesus again said there are many down here that are first, that up there are going to be last. Even though they're there, going to be last. He talks about this householder that goes out in the morning. He's got some work to do, and he goes down and he finds some laborers, said, "Come work for me. I'll give you 17 cents a day." Now, I can't figure the value of money at the present time because it bounces around every time the price of gold goes up and down. But in rough terms, we'd say from 17 to 25 cents a day here, denarius. And the 3rd hour, he goes out and gets some more. And the 6th hour and the 9th hour. And each time he hires some more. In the 11th hour, 1 hour to go, he finds some folks that aren't working yet. He said, "Why have you stood around all day long when there's work to do?" He said, "Nobody hired us." "Go out there," he said. "Get to work, get to work. Only got an hour to go, let's go. Get on the job." Now the payoff comes. We're going to look now at verse 8 and go down through verse 16. Remember now, he is commenting on many that are first shall be last, and the last first, and he repeats this thought in verse 16. We'll read down through that.
And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his steward, "Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first." And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more. But each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the householder, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat?" But he replied to them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity?" So the last will be first, and the first last.
God feels no obligation, Jesus feels no obligation to meet the ideas that we have of fairness. We are subject to God, He's not subject to us. The fact of the matter is, as far as family needs is concerned, if the people hired at the last hour had children and wives at home, their needs were as great as those who worked all day. And it was not necessarily their fault that they'd not been hired. Nobody had hired them. And Jesus said, this householder has a right to do with his money what he wants to do. And he's really telling us, friends, that sometimes you and I sit in judgment upon God because God is sometimes very generous to people that we don't think he has any business being generous to. And all of a sudden, we have put ourselves in the untenable, undefensible position of being the judges of God when God is our judge. And God blessed the person who was last. And Jesus goes through countless stories from time to time to say that God's rewards and man's rewards are not based on the same principle, and that many down here have been great, in heaven will be least. Many have been least down here will be greater in heaven. That have been last will be first, and first shall be last. Let's pick this up again as we go along now. We're going to teach the 12 about the coming death of Jesus, and we'll continue reading in Matthew 20, and we'll go from verse 17 on down through verse 19.
And as Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside on the way and said to them, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and deliver him to the Gentiles to be mocked, and scourged, and crucified, and he will be raised on the third day."
Mark adds a verse, and he says that Jesus walked ahead of them, and they were amazed. In other words, as he approaches Jerusalem, he sets his jaw. His mind's on the fulfillment of the prophecies of God. And in his set way of walking ahead of them, staring straight ahead, the disciples coming behind him, they're filled with amazement and follow him along. And he said to them, "I want you to know what's going to happen when we go to Jerusalem. I'm going to be spit on, scourged, crucified. 3 days, I will live again."